Welcome to this episode of Ferdinand Presents, guys. Yes, we've had the big weekend, the first weekend of Premier League football just gone on. Man United have been beat by Arsenal. And we're going to discuss that with my guys, Mr. Joel, Beya and Ste Howson. But one of the things that is quite crazy about this first weekend in Man United and Arsenal especially, Man United fans are quite positive after a 1-0 defeat, me included. But Arsenal fans have won 1-0 at Old Trafford and are a bit despondent. So let's get into it, guys. What's going on? How was your weekend, guys?
That was great. Steve, how was yours?
All right. Paddock went 5 games, 5 wins in the league. Absolutely flying in our newly promoted league. And I was at Oasis last night. So the losing to Arsenal, which I expected anyway, is merely a blip on a great weekend.
Obviously, Joel, look, your face is beaming. I can see the positivity in your face. But let's start with Manchester United. I think everyone's been talking about the forwards, and yeah, rightly so. But I always believe there's a foundation behind good forward play. And I thought at the weekend, the defence looked like there was a bit more kind of a method to the madness. And I thought that Leny, Yoro and Luke Shaw especially, how comfortable they look now, how much of an improvement they are. They look fitter, they look stronger. They look more composed in defensive situations as well. That sets the foundation and the springboard for us to be able to attack, and for those prominent forwards that we're hopefully going to now see a much more consistent output from. But I think when those forwards were looking back behind them, they wasn't thinking, are they getting tight enough? Are they too tight? Are they going to get rolled? And I think when you get that kind of reaction from the players in front of defenders, it almost kind of makes people half step and go a half a second later. So then things then change and don't become as consistent throughout the team. And I thought that was one of the pleasing things for me. And what I did like, that platform from behind and that confidence from behind allows, especially on the right-hand side, when you bring an Ahmad on, who plays right wing back, he goes and plays like a right winger. And Mbuemo comes inside a little bit more in that Salah position, inside right position, to be closer to goal, closer to Šeško. And then you've got Cunha freed up a bit more of a free runner, a bit more of a fluidity about the way he plays from that left-hand side. It made us look a lot more of a threat against probably the best unit defensively in the league, especially with the 2 centre-backs and the goalkeeper. So that filled me with a lot of confidence and optimism for the rest of the season. If we play like we played yesterday, we didn't get the result. If we play like that again and continuously and keep improving, I think it's going to be a season to be a lot more proud of than it has been the last couple of years.
I thought the way the game went was completely different to how I thought the game was going to go. I thought Arsenal would set the ball, stick it on us, United would play off the back foot. And even though I thought it would be relatively close, I thought we would ultimately come out losing. That's not how it went down. Arsenal didn't lay a glove on United. And you can talk about contentious refereeing decisions at both ends of the pitch, which could have swung that game entirely 180. Yeah. And the reason our United fans are happy after that game. I won't say happy because we're not happy after losing. Happier. We're encouraged, I think. We're encouraged. I think we're surprised and pleased with what we saw because we know what's going to come. Performances get results. You can get result, but if the performance that underlies that result isn't good, you're going to end up getting the results you deserve. And the same thing with performances. If the performances are strong, ultimately you'll start getting strong results from those performances. And if United played 37 games in the manner that we played that game yesterday, we will not be 15th next season. That's why United fans are encouraged. But I want to pick up on what you were saying about the defenders. Leny Yoro yesterday played like a £100 million defender. He was good with the ball. He was winning every single thing in the air. There was a ton of interceptions. I thought it was mad chaotic. It was effective. It was clearly on the front foot. But I can see so many high-scoring games with United if that's how we're going to attempt to defend in that sort of aggressive manner. What do you reckon?
Wait. Look, excellent game. I thought the lit was immense, but $100 million player. Just let's calm down a little bit. Yeah, Leny Yoro. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, but let's calm down a little bit.
What are you thinking, 125, 130?
Oh, Steve, come on, man. I understand why you're excited and there's a lot to be encouraged by, but I think 100 million, don't slap the pressure on him yet. He had a good game.
I think it's more about the structure of the team. I said this in pre-season. I think it's like we can go and get all the individuals that we want. If the structure of the team isn't right, then the fundamentals, we won't work. We'll continue to get beat and have indifferent results week in, week out and not be able to kind of recognise his team. What I liked about this this week, and there was a method to the madness, and you said it was a bit kamikaze at times, but they're pushing in and pressing, winning the ball, and you can see the traits kind of coming out. Win the ball, play forward quickly. If you can't play your first pass forward quickly, then play out, get to one side, drag that team across the pitch, and Mbuemo or Ahmad in the second half will be out on the right-hand side. So Casemiro, when you get it, I don't want it taking 2 or 3 touches and then a pass and then 3 passes. A raking pass, 30, 40 yards straight out there. Mount done it once or twice as well. You could see there was a method to the madness of what they were trying to achieve, and freeing up one of the wide players on the opposite side of where the ball was initially was the target for most of that game to get out. And when you get into the ball to someone like Mbeumo, who showed yesterday, you can get it to me, and if I'm free, I'll be 1v1 and I'll run at the defender and give him a problem. And he'd done that numerous times. And I think that those little things becoming patterns, and that's what I said about last season. I was struggling to see regular patterns come out and rear their head on a regular basis. I hope this isn't just, again, one game in 5 that we see this. I hope this is continued, and this is born out of a good pre-season where things are being put down on the training pitch.
Rio, how good was Cunha and Mbeumo? They are a totally different game to each other, but how dangerous did both of those two look?
It's weird. It's almost like they both had 35-minute cameos each. Mbeumo in the first half, where he was getting on the ball, and I think his drop off in the game was probably down to fitness. But he looked a threat immediately. Like, he gave us a different dimension. His positional sense, I thought, was one of the most pleasing things, in where he identified when to stay wide, when to come in the pitch, get back into good shape. But again, when he's on the ball, you can see that he's going to be a threat and ask questions of the defenders. Cunha, I saw a stat yesterday in one of my WhatsApp groups. Someone threw in just as the game started, who questioned whether they would have even bought him because he was top of the list of Premier League players last season, walking time. And that I went, oh, actually, would I want to sign a player who walks a lot? But then I watched this game, and he was actually walking past a lot of their defenders. He was waltzing past. Ben White, I said yesterday, I think, tweaked a hammy, kept chasing him. And he is the unpredictable one in our team now. He is the one that when the ball goes to him, you're going, okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Where are you going to go now? Because you might go left, you might go right, you might run straight past them. I don't know what you're going to do, but I like what I'm seeing. That's how I felt about Cunha yesterday. And I feel if I'm an opposing defender watching what I saw yesterday, minus Sesko, by the way, I'm thinking, oh, this is a different Man United now. They got power, strength, pace, guile, unpredictability. If they keep coming with that, I ain't going to enjoy playing against this. Whereas I don't think teams...
Rio,
go on.
What noise did you make when he had that little flick round the corner?
But seriously, I just think it's I don't want to get too carried away. It was pleasing that I went on the tour. Steve, we were on the tour. It was pleasing that we'd been on the tour, and some of the stuff we'd seen and we'd been hearing the guys talk about reared its head in the game, and we saw it. Long may it continue.
Would you say that's the first time that you saw the system benefit the squad, benefit the team?
Great question, Joel. I think it's absolutely. There's been every pundit and his dog has sat there and gone, the system isn't fit for the players. And I just was scratching my head with that, right? Of course it's not going to be at that stage. The manager had brought in one player, a left wing back. Like, it wasn't his group of players. Give the man time to mould the team to players that he sees fit for that formation. Now he's got 5 players in 2 windows that are his. So the team's starting to grow into a team that actually represents Ruben Amorim's style of football. And that's why when I kept hearing pundits say, the style of football, he's not thinking short term. I've got to keep stressing, right? It's one game, but hopefully we're seeing the benefits of him sticking by his methods while we were going through some pain. And then as I start putting my pieces in there, we'll now start to see the benefits. And hopefully that's where we're going to be in the next coming months.
What I saw immediately last season, which was a difference to Ten Hag, which was, I thought, was very noticeable outside of the going to a back 3. The one thing I noticed with Ruben Amorim's system was it was very, very slow and very deliberate. Like, we were frustratingly slow. And you see the Stretford end kicking off with Onana all the time because he would slow it down every single time he got it. And I felt like it was deliberate. I felt like we were taking a lot more deliberate care to move the ball through the thirds. Yesterday, like Rio's already sort of touched on, the tempo had gone up 5 or 6 levels. And I think that's throwback Manchester United. The very best Manchester United.
Sorry to jump in, Steve. Why is that, Steve? Why is that? Forget tactically. He's already said this because physically they was not at the level last season to play Ruben Amorim style football. They've had a pre-season.
And I'm wondering how impactful this is going to be. A tempo alone, like the patterns, whether there even was patterns properly last season, but the patterns can remain the same. The defending can remain the same. The personnel can remain the same. But if the tempo goes up, you're just going to be more dangerous, I think. It's easier to mark a team that's playing slow and deliberate and moving a little bit, creaky. That when Manchester United are hitting you at 100 mile an hour like they were yesterday, that must have felt relentless at times for us.
That's the word.
They must have come off the pitch going,
That's the word, Steve. Relentless.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that the best Manchester United teams have had that relentlessness to them, that tempo, that physicality to them. That alone, I think, is going to bring points. We're going to break teams with tempo this year. Now, what did I see that was going wrong? I thought you passed out from the back into our middle like that, like there was nobody there. That, I think, is a major drama. I think we've got to get our pressing shape correct because it felt like it was very, very easy to pass it through. At times, and maybe it's just a little bit of practice, but at times we looked like we were going to press high, and we did. And a couple of like quality passes and touches, and you was like right through the centre of us. And then there was other times it felt like the distances weren't quite right in front of the defence. And I think that's why we saw so much 1v1 defending from the back three, is because I just didn't think that there was anyone in front of them structurally. Like, I thought Bruno was busy, Casemiro was busy, but again, it feels like there's maybe 5 yards too much of a stretch, or maybe the defence hasn't quite got the confidence in itself to go high yet with it.
Steve, one thing I would stay on that, yeah? If you're going to be a team that presses high, you've got to be able to play 1v1 on the halfway line. And then that's part of the way that if you're going to be a pressing team, it has to work. You look at Arsenal, they've got 2 absolute beasts at the back, centre-halves, and their fullbacks, by the way. The 4 fullbacks they have, by the way. They can all play 1v1 and happy to do it. That's why if they do go on a high press Arsenal and you play over that into your striker, their centre-backs, you can see them. They're looking to bully and dominate, and that's what we have to get to. I think Luke Shaw is capable of that, and so is Leny Yoro. A little bit less so maybe the one who plays centre in terms of coming into big areas and spaces, but that's why you've got your 2 Rottweilers, hopefully either side of you in a 3, that you can push in and go, right, you go and deal with them 1v1. And if we get to a point where our 2 wide ones are really confident going out wide, covering channels and going into the central area of the pitch to deal with people 1v1, we become a massive problem because we can really be forward-thinking pressing high up the pitch. And when you win the ball high, we know what that leads to. It leads to opportunities at goal.
You guys both spoke about intensity, and you love the intensity and how it looks better, which I do agree with. But I'm also a bit concerned when I see Man United, because I think, is that not just because it was against Arsenal? You got Fulham next week. We saw how well you showed intensity when you played against teams like Man City last season.
Yeah, you're right.
Is this the real deal, or are we just seeing it? Because let's be honest, as much as we banter and Man United versus Arsenal will always be a big game to those players, especially, Do you think it's easier to show that because it's a big game? Are they going to revert back to what we're used to seeing last season?
I think it's a great point, Joe, and I think it's a really valid point, because that was a bit of our undoing. Like, we played some really good moments, or 60 minutes, 30 minutes against the big teams last year, and then got undone. But against some of the lesser known teams, we were getting outfought, outrun, outplayed on numerous occasions where you thought we should be doing better than that. So this season, I think that's a big question mark that has to be answered. Like you say, can we beat the Fulhams and make Fulham look like a team inferior to Manchester United? Can we do that to a lot of the teams around the ilk of Fulham? That's going to be the big ask, and we just have to wait and see. The signs are very good after the first game for me, but you still need to see it play out.
Do you agree? Do you reckon it was just more because it was against Arsenal, or do you reckon you've actually turned a corner when it comes to this intensity?
No, I don't think it was anything to do with the fact it was Arsenal. I don't think anything to do with the fact it was Arsenal. I don't think it was anything to do with the fact it was opening day. I thought that there was things in that performance, there were traits in that performance that are repeatable traits. And it wasn't a case of like, people want to distill football down to so much bait, like they were up for it. What sort of analysis is that? Like,
because that's what happens.
Name names, Steve. Name names.
Let's not. No, Steve.
Anyone
Steve,
who works for TalkSport.
Yeah, let's be honest here. It is very possible, and that's what happens with footballers. If you've played any game, it doesn't even have to be at a professional standard. When there's certain teams you're playing against, you're more up for it. That's what happens. That's football.
Yeah, but I think that the manner of that performance, there was repeatable traits in there that I think that there's a reason. Like Rio started it with it. United fans are coming away happy, and Arsenal fans are coming away a little bit gutted. And let's talk about Arsenal, because I said you changed the structure of this team. You take Havertz out.
He did.
You put Zubimendi and Rice in. Declan Rice was an absolute ghost yesterday. Where was he? He's missing, that guy. No one knows where he is. And I tell you what, how do you court spending so much money on a striker? How do you talk about needing to get a goal-scoring striker in? You spend all that money on Viktor Gyokeres and then don't even play him at Old Trafford. What's going on with that?
Steve, it's I know what you're doing here. You're fishing and looking for a response. You have to remember he's also not fit yet. This is his third game. He came in late to the Arsenal squad because of when the transfer happened. When you're looking at the Mbuemos, the Cunhas, they've had a little bit more time than him. And at the same time, you're playing against Manchester United away at Old Trafford. It's not going to be an easy game, man.
What, the team that came 15th last year, that's had more losses than whatever?
It's like a derby, Steve. When we play you, all of that stuff goes out the window. It's about winning. And sometimes it doesn't matter how you win. So I looked at Viktor Gyokeres. The crosses didn't look really good, I'll be honest with you. But he tried to put himself about. You know, he's going to need a little bit of time to settle in.
Yeah, that's what you signed him for. That's what you signed, this absolute bagsman, 50-goal a season striker.
And that's why you signed Mbuemo. And that's why you signed Mbuemo. And he had chances and he didn't concern.
I thought all your team needed was to score goals.
No. But Mbuemo is there to score goals as well. Where was his goals yesterday? He had chances.
Your team came second last couple of years. You're nearly perfect. Final piece of the jigsaw, you said. Final piece.
Yeah.
Guy didn't get a shot, Joel.
It don't matter. Do you know? Because when you look at that board, when you look at the table at the moment, it's 3 points for us and 0 for you. So all we have to do is go into next week and you keep on building with what he's done. You saw him in a friendly last week against Bilbao. You saw him. He knows where the goal is. He just needs a bit of time against these Premier League teams. It's one game, Steve.
Yeah, but what I saw coming into the season, you change Havertz. What's happened in that game? You didn't have possession. Arsenal are a team that hold possession. You came to Old Trafford, you got possession taken off you. Why? Because you didn't have the outlet. Gyokeres is not holding the ball up in the same way that Havertz was holding it for you. And also, you've lost Thomas Partey. You've now got someone that's a little bit neater on the ball. You are not the same team. Say goodbye to second. You peaked and didn't even win anything.
Wow.
Congratulations. You are now looking at 4th.
Steve said, say goodbye to second. Wow.
Steve, you have to remember, season amongst season, you keep on making these shouts. And the only thing
season on season, I'm absolutely bang on. Yeah,
not really, because how many times have we had this thing where you go, oh, Arsenal are going to fall off here and they're going to fall off there.
How many times have you won the league?
How
many times have you come in with a Premier League trophy? This is ours.
Are you going to let me finish?
How many times have you ended up at the end of the season with no cake, with no cigar, with no sunglasses, and no Premier League title?
He's not far wrong, Joe, you know. Serious.
Are you going to let me finish? No, bruv. Listen, the sunglasses are always there, bruv. We just bring them out at the right time. All right? I'm going to be calmer this season. All I'm saying is we need to give him time. And I do actually think Gyokeres is going to do well for us. It's just, again, it's the Premier League. It's a high-intensity game. You came out against one of the best Man United performances that I've seen in years. So
I think with Gyokeres, I think you got to look at him and go, right, okay, where are his attributes best suited on the pitch and where does he cause problems? If you look at yesterday in isolation, running the channels is something he looks like he's good at and he enjoys. Yeah. He's physically capable of doing that. I think he's still going to have to get fitter. He'll have to take more training sessions and more games to see the best out of him physically. But playing him in the channels and running. So away from home, more often than not, that's going to happen. Somewhere like at the Emirates where they dominate possession if they dominate possession, if you're listening to Steve's analogy. But if they dominate possession and pen teams back, home or away, is that going to suit his game? Are Arsenal going to ask him to be playing in and off him and runners run off him? I don't think so. I think the ask of him is going to be, when the ball gets into the penalty box, where are you going to find space to score goals? And can you execute? How many times do we see Odegaard-Saka combination get to the byline, get in the corner of the box, and you just need a number 9 to just finish that chance off? That's where he's going to earn his coin. That's where he's going to get judgment. I think like the playing on the counter attack isn't going to happen too often for Arsenal this season. I wouldn't say, if you're going based on past seasons, they dominate possession most of the time. I take Steve's point, but I think this guy has shown that he can score goals. And the only reason I wasn't willing or wasn't championing taking him to Manchester United was the mere fact that I thought his profile in terms of experience, age, what else is on the market, I thought it was more suited to what Man United needed. But I think he, on the market, what was available, I think he's one of those players you go, I can understand why Arsenal have bought him. So you've got to give him that time. I know you can't judge someone after the first game, especially when he hasn't had a full pre-season at it.
I've got a question here, and I actually want to hear your opinion. This is actually from Irvin from 360 TV. He says he reckons Gyokeres is not that good of a player. He said that all he needs is 5 games, right? And he'll be able to make a full-on conclusion. And his thoughts were, we had a chat about this yesterday after the game, after our live. He said, why is it that all the top teams who needed a striker were not in for him? Why? Why is it that he's outscored more goals than any other striker that's gone around, more than Ekitike, more than Sesko? Why is it that a player like that hasn't been sought after more? And he also reckons that Rio, you and Jolian, probably didn't think he was that much of a good player in the first place, and you just saw it earlier on. And it's not because he wasn't suited for Man United. You're just being polite. Just putting that out there. That's what he said. But he...
What I kept hearing was, he smashed Man City and he's done this and done that. He played against like an 18-year-old centre-half, and Nakanji was out of sorts on the night. And I think 2 of the goals were penalties. So I was saying, calm down. I've watched him live twice, 2 or 3 times, and I watched him against Arsenal. He didn't get a kick against Arsenal, right? So, and they're 2 Premier League teams. I was thinking, I ain't seen enough to warrant people going, he's going to be the saviour. But but my point was, especially for Man United, a dysfunctional Man United, 100%, I didn't see it.
You say that, Rio, but Arsenal could have bought Sesko for 92, 93 million, and they still would have. That sell-on point isn't that valid when you compare that situation, because who's to say that with the way the prices are going up that they couldn't have had their value for money if it was Sesko? We didn't go for it because we didn't want to spend 92 million.
Or you rang up and he was like,
nah, that's not what happened. But I'm just putting it out there from what the football fans in the world are saying, because obviously I think he's a good player. I think he's going to do well. But that is someone who is not a fan of Gyokeres. He doesn't support any of our teams, so he doesn't have that bias. But it was a very good question, I thought, that was asked.
I think he'll score goals, but I think that's not my issue with him. If I'm looking at it from a purely analytical point of view, he changes how you play, and I think you're less effective because of that. That's it. Simple. But he will score because he's a goal scorer.
Okay, cool.
Guys, it's obviously the first game of the season, start of the season. I always say I never felt fit until probably 5 or 6 games in minimum. Pre-season, I used to be scared of football and games because you're kind of open to people watching when you're half fit, even less than that at times. And so even after the first game, you're looking at people like the new signings like Gyokeres, who hasn't trained with his team while he was at Porto, waiting to go to Arsenal. He's now in the building. He's not physically at his premium yet. So I thought no better than to get somebody who's training some of the top class talent around the world during their off season to get them ready to when they go back in pre-season. An old friend of mine, Dan Edwards, is joining us now. How you doing, Dan?
Morning, mate. I'm good. Yourself?
We're waking up now talking about fitness and physicality, sharpness at this stage of the season. One part of the game that's like grown massively over the years is that off season and players kind of utilizing their own coaches and building a team around them. You're one of those guys that a lot of the players lean on. Tell us a few of the names that you work with, and how does that the player go about getting someone like yourself on board?
I've been fortunate enough to work with a few big players. Trent, Camavinga, Jules Koundé, Welsh, Youngie, the United boys. And yeah, it's changed over sort of the last 3 to 5 years. It's become a lot more glamorous, the use of social media. But whether it's through players direct contacting me or agents, it's a lot more visible now, especially during the off season. I think the work that I especially do during the season, in season, is a bit more private, not really for the cameras. However, you'll see a lot of players post their off-season training programs on their social media, and there's lots of coaches similar to me that run off-season training camps for players.
What are the clubs like with that? Because I always look at it and think, if I was a club, would I mind it? And I think when I played, clubs didn't really allow for that to happen so much. You had to do it on the quiet if you did do it. But if I was a football club now, I would actually want to have dialogue with that coach just to understand what they're doing and just to kind of give them what we are doing, and which we can come to a place of harmony where we're making sure that the players getting the best of both worlds.
It's hit and miss, to be honest. I mean, I've worked with players from League Two to United and Madrid, and depending on sort of the S&C medical department, it depends on sort of how much information they want from the players and from yourself. To be honest, during the off season, it's not as demanding for the players. They're set their runs. You see a lot of things, I'm not going to start moaning about, but you see a lot of things on Instagram from Instagram coaches, what I call them, where they're battering players and they're running them through all these types of drills. Whereas the off season for me is just about maintenance. It's just about getting the players ready for pre-season. So some of the clubs, I mean, Madrid and Liverpool are the two clubs that I've dealt with recently. They're very hands-on and want sort of reports and give you very detailed off-season training programs, sort of minute to minute, day by day. Some of the other clubs just set the runs and it's down to you to run whatever you feel comfortable running.
How much do you sort of think what your job is injury prevention, like prehab, to make them strong enough for the demands of the game? And how much do you think is like stretching their abilities in the strength and conditioning of their fitness?
The most important thing for me personally is player safety. My job isn't to make the player a better player. I'm only with them sort of during the off season, and then when I'm working with them during the season. So it's about injury prevention. It's just about maintenance work. And I think that's where there's obviously going to be injuries are inevitable. And there's been press recently about a player getting injured, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But during the off season, it's just about coaches doing maintenance work and ticking the players over to make sure that they're in top condition for when they start pre-season.
You're obviously working with the players, and it's maintenance work, as you call it, and you're working with them during the off season and during the season itself. But isn't this something that clubs should be doing more internally, or are you happy with the fact that they give you more freedom to do it in your own space? Because you're going to have some people that go, hang on a minute, what's he doing with him over there? Is he doing it right? Is he doing it the way the club would want to do it? What's your thoughts when you hear things like that?
I completely get both sides, and I've been working with players individually now for about 6 years. So I've kind of seen the progression, and especially with the rise in social media. But I think where it's become a bit more glamorous now and people are trying to take advantage of it, where the Netflix documentary, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, and the documentaries with LeBron James and Steph Curry, where it's not frowned upon in the US. 82% of NBA players have their own private coaches, and 74% of NFL players have their own private coaches. It's not frowned upon in the US because they take it that seriously. By all means, it would be ideal if the clubs only work with their players and players only work with the coaches at their clubs. However, there may be 5 to 10 S&C coaches at the top clubs, and there's 25 players. Each player has to have their own individual program. And what you will see, the old school coaching, if we're talking about pitch-wise, the centre forwards would do their finishing. And you'll get 4 or 5 players, edge of the box, set it in, they set back, and you shoot. And that's the striker's finishing. However...
That's what Ste does.
However, for my role, when I'm working with forwards, it's where do they take, and basing it upon stats, where do they take most of their touches in the box, 1 touch or 2 touch, what part is it on the right side, is it on the left side, right foot or left foot, and it's about repetition and replicating what they actually have to do in a game. So I think it's trying to give them a more tailored program rather than a generic program that clubs do, which are amazing, but players want individual training.
Dan, one manager who had a bit of a problem with it was Paul Heckingbottom, who's the Preston North End manager, and he was really critical of coaches like yourself, of coaching players outside, because one of his players got injured doing just that. How do you kind of rebuff his criticism of coaches like yourself outside of the club?
I mean, I understand his frustration. The coach he was talking about, Tom, I know really well, and Tom has worked for a Premier League club for a number of years, is running his own program, so I know the work that he does is outstanding. Injuries are inevitable, and there's always going to be the player that gets injured working with their own team during training. This was what happened with his player, was not an injury where it was about load. It was a knock where his foot hit something and he's hurting his ankle. So players trust these one-on-one coaches. Clubs trust these one-on-one coaches. That's why there's so many players that work with one-on-one specialists. And as long as the communication is on point and clubs are talking to the coaches and players and vice versa, there's always a chance. There's the freak injuries where a player got injured stretching for their remote. So these are inevitable. But as long as the communication is right and on point, then the main aim is to try and make the player as good as you can.
You've worked with these guys like Trent and Camavinga, Mbuemo, the new signing at Man United, and plus many others. What's the most common thing these guys would ask of you as a coach outside of the club during the season, especially?
I think the service I like to provide is just a tailored service for the players, an individual program where they're going to be doing replicating, whether it's in the gym or on the pitch. It's going to be position specific and it's going to be player specific. So for instance, if it's, like I said, working with a forward, it has to be sort of their side of the pitch in the area. It has to be, and 90% of this is unopposed. So I can already hear or imagine the comments about you're going to be getting players injured and it's overused. I understand the load, the GPS, the stats behind it in terms of understanding a player's rest and recovery. These players during the season are used to a structure, and although they may do finishing or they might do position specific training with their team, they want to do stuff on their own where they're comfortable making mistakes in their own environment. And whether it's me going to their house and working with them gym or working in their garden, and obviously their gardens are like pitches anyway, but it's just about repetition so that when they're in training, they're not making these little errors. The coach sees the end goal. They might see an assist or they might see a finish. However, my selling point is my attention to detail. So how can we improve the first touch or your body positioning or your hip movement so that we can get it 2 times out of 3 instead of just getting a 1 out of 3 result?
Are you talking about like ATG sort of stuff? Are we talking like loads of Nordics, like ankle stability and strengthening, like specifics? What are we working on with the players?
It does depend on the player, to be honest. And I think that's the difference between some of the lower league teams, why some of their players will have individual coaches because they just don't have the staff. You'll see online the vacancies for S&C or medical departments that need numbers, especially in the lower teams. And that's why they go to individual coaches, and it varies player to player. Depending on their fitness levels, you don't need to do anything with their fitness levels. Sharpness sometimes is, what I mean by that is just a little, I always use centre forwards because it's easy to compare. But if we're doing near post finishing, there might be 3 yards away from goal, but you're playing the ball across to them and they're going with their weaker foot. And it's that repetition where they're strengthening their ankle and they're just touching the ball inside of the foot into the goal. And there's so many opportunities where you'll see the ball in the 6-yard box and the player should score, but they overhit it, or they hit under the ball, or they mishit it. And it's having that repetition. It's so basic, but it's making sure that the player knows the moment you're painting pictures, they're in a certain area. 9 times out of 10, everyone's expecting them to score because the ball's in the 6-yard box, it's bouncing, it's bobbling. But how many clubs spend time doing the basics like that when it's just one specific player? And then you're doing it with the inside of the foot, you're doing it with the laces, and you're just trying to repeat all of these potential scenarios so that when it happens in a game, you're confident and the player's confident, which is key, that they know they're going to finish it.
Well, listen, man, long mate, continue. I have to come down and watch a couple of sessions next pre-season, man.
Get you into two-touch to start cheating again.
I don't know, have you beat me at two-touch before?
I can't. The Wi-Fi's gone. Can't hear you.
Well, listen, man, Dan, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate your time.
Thanks,
and keep
guys.
up the good work.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
One team that I want to speak about where obviously we've been focusing, a lot of us have been saying, Liverpool will win the league, it's Liverpool's to lose, etc. Manchester City were on fire this weekend gone. I mean, it looked like they didn't miss the legend who is Kevin De Bruyne, because they had Reijnders who for 50 million looked like an absolute bargain.
Well, I knew Reijnders was a good player because I've seen him play for Holland and I've seen him play at Milan, and I thought, yeah, very good player, really good mover, can get box to box. I didn't see the pass that he produced for the first goal, by the way, for the Rico Lewis cross for Haaland. He just dinked it over the defence. I didn't know he had the finesse around the box like that. But his ability to move and run and find space from the midfield area, and he was good, really comfortable with the ball. He just looked like he fitted in and slotted in so seamlessly. It was just lost De Bruyne. Not that they've got another De Bruyne, but they've got someone who can impact this team. And he looked super comfortable. And Cherki, I think, could be one of the buys of the season at the price they got him, how cheap he was. Just for pure, being like a throwback Maverick type player. We'd seen what he's done in France. Can he transfer that to the Premier League? That's the big question with him. But there's no doubt in my mind that in terms of skill set and unpredictability and pure cheekiness, he's going to be definitely one to watch that you go, actually, I don't mind turning the TV on, even though it is Man City, just to see if he's producing any moments, because he's got that much imagination and that much kind of audacity. He can embarrass many, many defenders this year. And City, you look at the players that weren't playing the other day and they still smashed Wolves by 4. You had Rodri and Foden in the stands, just to name 2. Akanji, another one. Do you know what I mean? Aki, Vardiol. Like, there's a lot of players not playing still in that team. I think I've missed a couple even more still. But they got depth in that squad. And they're going to be in the shake-up, no doubts.
I have to say something that interests me. You mentioned Cherki. First of all, he could end up being better value for money than Wirtz. That's one shout that I've got, even though he's only bought for £31.5 million. But I do think he's an interesting one because he's not a Pep Guardiola type of player. Now, usually when you see him playing, running back is not his best attribute. And we all know playing for a Pep Guardiola side, you need to be able to run back or you will be made an example of. Do you think he's going to humble himself, Rio, in this team? Or do you reckon he's going to carry on being the Maverick that he is?
Unless you're Messi, you don't cheat in his team. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. It's been proven. When he went to Bayern, there's no cheaters. And they got world-class players all over the gaff. Barcelona had world-class players. The only one allowed to half-step and take a little breather was Messi, but because he knew what he was about. He's the best, one of the best, if not the best players of all time. So Cherki, I don't think you look at it like that. I think you look at it like, well, what did he get out of someone like Mahrez, who was a mercurial talent, a crazy talent? Can he get anything like the output that he was producing? Is he going to be disciplined enough? That's the big question for me. will he be disciplined enough to play in a position where it's more beneficial for the team than the individual himself? And that's what Jack Grealish ended up doing, but he's been vilified for that in this country. Jack Grealish was never the Aston Villa Grealish at Man City, but the geezer won trophies, and I would go as far to say that if you spoke to a lot of the City players, were they appreciative of the way that Jack Grealish played for Man City? Did he help them get over the line to win the trophies they did when he was there? They'd say that he played a big role in that. So it might not be the Grealish that we wanted to see, but it's the Grealish that Pep Guardiola and the squad needed to win the trophies that they did. And if they can get that out of Cherki, us people that want to see Mavericks might be disappointed and go, what's going on, throw our toys out of the pram. But if he's winning trophies and Pep's getting what he wants out of him, and that means dumbing down the way that he plays a little bit, then if it works for City, then so be it.
Clearly not the Grealish that Pep wanted to see enough of, otherwise he wouldn't be on loan to Everton at the moment.
You could say that, but what I mean is that he was still playing, and when they won the treble, they were still playing him.
Yeah, that was a really good season. Obviously, the most important season, and that was his best season. I was actually looking at his stats the other day, and I liked him at Villa, and I think even for England, in the cameos he was having in Euros 2020, I thought incredible. But it just hasn't worked out, and we can put our hands up and saying he hasn't been in his best form. Hopefully he can do well for Everton and get the freedom.
Can I just go on that point with Grealish though? Because a lot of people do say this, yeah, and a lot of people that say this, just like you just said, you started that sentence with, I've looked at his stats. Stats aren't the telling thing for every single player. It's not like we're becoming we're not the NFL or the NBA where stats are just the absolutes to what defines a player. I think that with Jack Grealish, and I think there's certain players, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him. All I'm saying is that I think when you speak to City players, why do you like Jack Grealish in your team? And I think I can give you quite a few points as to why they like him in his team. Haaland 100% would like him in his team because one, Grealish brings 2 or 3 players to him most of the time. Because they know what he's capable of. He holds onto the ball longer than most players. He's one of the only players allowed to do that in the City team. Why? Because he drags players over to him, which will enable there to be space somewhere else, which other players can exploit. Sometimes there's a reason why players are in the team, and it's not necessarily for stats. There's other reasons why they're there.
So why isn't Pep kept in then if he's so good?
Because I don't think it's just about necessarily just football. I think there's other reasons to it. Yeah, he may not be playing as well as he has before prior to this, but he's had a few injuries as well, and maybe the manager wants to freshen it up. He's been there, he's done it, he's won things. Maybe he thinks that Jack needs a new adventure, a new chapter to freshen himself up. Maybe the squad needs a few new players, and Jack doesn't fit that script anymore. But I think he had a purpose as to why he was there and what he'd done, and it wasn't just about scoring goals and making assists.
In the words of Stephen Howson, no further questions, Your Honour. Anyway.
I just want someone to defend me as hard as Rio defends Jack.
Yeah.
You never defended that hard for United, Rio.
But you know what, at the same time, I've said all I've said there, yeah? And I still think Jack Grealish will sit back when he's finished playing his career and I've said this loads of times and go, my best football weren't at City, but I won everything. So I can't be too despondent about that. And I think that the enjoyment factor wasn't there like he had at Villa. The ability to be free and play with a freeness wasn't there. I hope he gets that back now at Everton. But there was a means to why he was doing what he's doing. You have to say there's a certain amount of like humility and actual like, you know what, he's sacrificed a lot of what he loved about the game for the betterment of a team. Can we not respect that? It's hard to do that, you know.
Anyway, guys, I want to say thank you very much for watching Rio Ferdinand Presents channel. This weekend has been content firing out. If you haven't seen the live from yesterday, you get the real raw emotions. Obviously, we've had interviews coming out. We've got more interviews coming out soon, right, Rio? Do you have any names for us? Or
yeah, man. Yeah, we've got one with Wayne Rooney dropping soon. We've got one with Michael Owen. The Michael Owen one, both of them are bangers, I've got to say. You see both of these guys in different lights, especially Michael Owen, who... I know Michael from as a kid, and he's a funny guy, a lot of confidence, and when you see him on Rio Meets, you would never have seen a more confident Michael Owen, and there's a good reason for that as well.
I might skip that one unless I'm tired, unless I need an early night.
No, Steve, you're going to like this one. You're going to like this one's for people like you who don't know Michael and have no belief in serious.
He said I might skip it. Anyway, for everybody watching, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications. We are back. The boys are back in town. In town. Joel Beya, Stephen Howson, Rio Ferdinand, back for a big season on Rio Ferdinand Presents. Signing out. Peace.